In this video, we'll take a look at the session and clip play pad modes. These are accessible from the scene and pattern buttons respectively. In session mode, the pads control the clips within the grid selector, which is the green border that you see here. By default, the pads will launch clips. You can move the grid selector around with the arrow buttons. When the erase button is pressed, the pads can be used for deleting clips. When the duplicate button is pressed, the pads can be used for duplicating clips. And when the select button is pressed, the pads can be used for selecting clips. The lower line of the display will show the name of the first track and first scene being controlled. The display will also momentarily show edit information. The upper line of the display shows the functions available from the display buttons. The scene button will launch the selected scene. When duplicate is pressed, it'll duplicate the selected scene. When erase is pressed, it'll delete the selected scene. This button will stop all clips. The last four display buttons control the tracks within the grid selector. By default, these will stop tracks. When duplicate is held down, these can be used for duplicating tracks. When select is held down, these can be used for selecting tracks. If a track is already selected, these will toggle the arm state of the track. Holding down Shift and pressing Select will unarm all tracks. When solo is held down, pressing a button quickly will toggle the solo state of the track. Holding the button down will offer momentary control. Holding down Shift and pressing solo will unsolo all tracks. When mute is pressed, pressing a button quickly will toggle the mute state of the track. Holding the button down will offer momentary control. Holding down Shift and pressing mute will unmute all tracks. And finally, when erase is held down, these can be used for deleting tracks. Clip play mode allows you to chop clips up, easily control their loop, and chromatically play them. This mode is split into 4 sub-modes that you can switch between with the display buttons. In default, the upper 8 pads will be assigned to clip chopping, and the lower 8 pads will be assigned to clip loop control. In chop, all 16 pads will be used for clip chopping. In loop, all 16 pads will be used for clip loop control. And in chromatic, all 16 pads will be used for chromatic clip play. With clip chopping, the pads will be assigned to evenly distributed start points based on the length of the clip. If the clip is looping, just the section within the loop will be taken into account. If the clip is not looping, the entire length of the clip will be taken into account. Upon pressing a pad, the clip start marker will move to the associated position and the clip will be relaunched. This involves quantization, so you can actually choose the quantization to use by holding down the note repeat button and using the first 4 display buttons. Loop control works in a similar way. The pads will be assigned to evenly distributed positions and lengths, and this supports multiple pad presses to allow different lengths to be set. To give you an example of this, I'm going to play a clip all the way through, and then the second time around I'll start chopping it up, change its loop position, chop it up a bit more so you can see how this works. I'll also add a drum beat to give it a bit more context. When chopping clips up, it's possible for the clip to get out of sync with the rest of the set. Sometimes that's intentional, sometimes it's not. In either case, you can fix this by holding down Erase and pressing one of the chop pads. In the chromatic sub-mode, the upper 8 pads are assigned to ascending pitches and the lower 8 pads are assigned to descending pitches. The chromatic sub-mode can also be used with MIDI clips. It just requires that the track contains a pitch plugin. This sub-mode also provides a legato option, which allows for legato clip launching. The lower line of the display shows the name of the track and clip being controlled. The upper line shows the functions available from the display buttons. Loop will toggle the clip's loop on and off. If Shift is pressed, this will reset the clip's loop. The last 4 buttons select the sub-modes as we saw before, and when the chromatic sub-mode is selected, you'll have the legato option.